Hello and welcome to a new series where I'll be doing quick guides for how I navigate Daz3D and create the visuals I need for my visual novels. These guides assume that you already have a basic understanding of Daz, so if you don't, I recommend playing around a little bit first and familiarizing yourself with the program. This first guide is all about lighting. Now, I don't care what anybody else says. Once you've got the basics of Daz down, the absolute first thing you need to nail is the lighting. It can take a pretty underwhelming shot and turn it into something that would make baby Jesus cry with joy. So, here we have our guide model, Ty. He's here to show you how the various lighting options will impact the quality and vibes of your shot. First, let's dive into the setting called Environment Mode, which is here in the render settings under the Environment tab. There are 4 drop-down options you can choose from, each manipulating the lighting of your scene in very specific ways. We have Dome and Scene, Dome Only, Sun Sky Only, and Scene Only. Let's dive in and see how these settings affect the base lighting for Ty. First up, we have Dome and Scene. This setting uses the Dome feature. Imagine your set is surrounded by an environment dome, which is also casting light. These are called HDRIs. Daz comes with a couple inbuilt, so don't worry about needing to find some right now. This setting also shows light that's cast from any props that you've put into the scene. Next, we have Dome Only. Now, this doesn't look any different, and that's because this setting is only using light from the dome. It will not cast any light from your props, which, as you can see over here, we do not have any. Next is Sun Sky. Now, this is one of my favorite settings. Now, this is one of my favorite settings. Sun Sky uses the inbuilt sky dome lighting within the Daz system. You can allocate a specific time of day, and you can also pick a certain date too if you think for whatever reason some random day in history had some buzzing light. This is very adaptable, and I'll be showing it in a bit more detail later on. Finally, we have the Scene Only setting, which, if you haven't guessed already by the black screen, this only casts light from your props. It's good for indoor nighttime shots, but it's also handy for when you want to manipulate the lighting of your scene with strictly unnatural lights. So that could be lamps, neon lights, anything like that. So let's go ahead and go back to this. So how would I light a scene? Well, that depends on overall tone and vibe. But let's assume we're going for a natural day shot of Ty at the park. First, we need a park. Ta-da! Just like magic, we have a park. Now, I'd use the Sun Sky feature as my base lighting. So let's go over here and select Sun Sky. Let's say that it's mid-afternoon, so we will go for 2 PM in the time section. And let's hit preview and see what that's looking like. So this is what we're looking at right now for the Sun Sky option. So if I show you the difference between Dome and Scene and Sun Sky right now. Here we've got Dome and Scene. Quite dull, quite muted, quite taken aback. And then we've got Sun Sky. You can see that the sun is actually casting the shadows that we want, and it's bringing quite a lot of vibrancy and colour. In your shot, if the light isn't hitting the right way that you'd prefer, that's what the orientation, longitude, latitude, and dome rotation tabs are for. So let's play around with these, and I'll just show you basically what these are doing. So the dome rotation as you can see, is moving where the light is being cast from. Think of this as kind of like the direction your shadows are going to go. So if your shadows are over here to the right, it means that your dome is over to the left. Next up, we have longitude and latitude. So think of this as how high the sun is in the sky and where about horizontally it is positioned. So if I show you this now, you can see that the shadows are moving in accordance to that. Same with longitude. So this is good for deciding where you want your light to be cast from. Dome orientation does a very similar thing. So it's really just handy to really get the right sort of tone and light you want from your scene. So now we're going to just go back quickly because I think this is a good shot for us. So we could end it here, but I think we can improve this just a little bit more. So let's add some prop lights. So let's come out of this. So here we are. For a scene like this, we want the light to be as natural as possible. I tend to use ghost lights more often than not, which can be bought on the Daz store. However, if you're working to a budget and want to make things as cost-free as possible, here's a workaround. So you want to go up here to this tab called Create a New Primitive. Now, on their own, these aren't actually lights. They are different surfaces that you can manipulate in a lot of ways. For something like this, we're just going to create a sphere. And here it is. Let's go to perspective view so we can see that in all of its glory. Get out of the damn tree. There we go. So now we need to move it to a location that makes sense. So if I quickly just move it over here, out of the shot, let's look and see where that light was being cast from originally. Awesome. So you can see that the sun is angled more towards the right of our shot. So what we want to do is make sure that our primitive is also angled in that direction so that we aren't ruining the shadows and the natural light that we've already created here. So let's go ahead and come out of that preview and let's move primitive to a more natural location, which I am thinking would be here. Let's move that up. It's going to act as kind of like your full sun, just a little bit closer to brighten up your shot and give it some more detail. So now that it is in location, you want to go to sphere, go to surfaces, all, and you want to scroll until you see emission color. Click it and you can see that there are a bunch of different colors to choose from. We're essentially picking the color of light that this sphere is going to emit. For a natural scene like this, you just want to choose the white. So next you want to scroll down until you find luminance units. You want to select KCD/M, random arrow, and 2. I'm not entirely sure what this means, but I've found it's the best setting for me in controlling the brightness of the light. Speaking of which, if you go just above, luminance is that brightness setting. I like to go for 1200 as like the base value and then go up or down from there depending on what's needed for the scene. So now that's done, as you can see, our dome, our little sphere is bright white, and it's going to be casting light down on our tie. If I go to camera and I preview this render, it should have brightened our scene just enough to bring out the last bit of details that we want. So yeah, as you can see, it has brightened our shot a bit more. It's still retaining the shadows that we wanted. However, you might notice at the bottom of the screen, just down here, it's actually blocking some of the light from the sun, casting its own shadow. So this goes into one of the two main issues for these primitive lights. But there's workarounds, and I will show you right now. The first issue is that they can be pretty harsh in smaller settings, especially indoors. They can cast glare and wash out light surfaces. The workaround for that would just be to play around with the variables and size, placement, shape if it's primitive. That should help to mitigate as much of that glare and wash out as possible. The real issue, as you saw, is the primitive creating and blocking out light from the sun sky, but also it can appear in reflections in glass, water, any surface that's like that. It can appear in that, which isn't ideal. You can angle it so that it's not in the camera shot, but then you're kind of compromising where you wanted the light originally to come from. Luckily, your good boy Blake has a solution, which means you don't need to fork out for those ghost lights. We're going to make our own. And it's super easy. You want to go to sphere, again, and cut out opacity, which is here. You want to change this value to 0.0000001. This will essentially make your primitive invisible. Where's he gone? There it is. Now, if I switch over to scene really quick, over in the environment mode, as you can see, it's no longer casting any light, which isn't what we want. So what do? Easy. All we need to do is head over to your luminance tab and input the amount of digits that we just put into the cutout opacity tab. So that is 7 extra digits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now if I go back into it, you'll see that it is casting the light. Ta-da! Yes, Lily. So what we want to do now is go to Sun Sky and just double check that it has indeed turned our sphere invisible. The goal is to not have that pesky shadow at the bottom. Ta-da! Completely gone. It's brightened up our scene. It's kept the colours that we want, the tone we want, but it's just giving that extra vroom. And that's basically how I like the average scene. Here's a look with zero lighting. And now the work that we've done. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tag me or send me any testers that you've done using this guide. Thanks guys.